Jens Nordvig joins us now, founder and CEO of Exante Data. Jens, let's just start with this. I had a conversation recently with PIMCO about the shape of this cycle. Can you walk me through why this one's going to be different, if you do indeed think it will be?
I think we can already see that it's a totally different cycle, right? So the recession lasted a couple of months rather than typically several years, right? So everything is moving at a turbo kind of pace. And really what is so different about this cycle is not just the type of the shock. Obviously a pandemic shock is normal, like it's different from a normal business cycle shock, but it's also the policy response, like just the incredible strength of both monetary, but what was really unusual is just the size of the fiscal impulse we've had. And not only is the fiscal impulse huge, it's also the stigma associated with using fiscal policy very aggressively has been kind of removed. And that means that maybe we'll get more of it going forward. We're already discussing additional steps in the US, right? Even though we've had such a big push already. So it's a totally different cycle. Like we used to have essentially only monetary policy driving the stimulus for a multi-year period, right? And now finally fiscal policy has stepped on the gas, and it's been enough to really change inflation expectations. And look around the world, like it's not just in the US we have inflation that is on the move, it's everywhere. And we even have a bunch of central banks that are like feeling kind of behind and have to catch up. So we have EM central banks that deliver 100 or even more basis points in one go, and they were saying a couple of months ago that they would be on zero for a long time. We have the UK where we thought they were going to be on zero for a long time, and now the expectation is they're going to hike next month.
Yeah.
Things are moving really, really fast.
Jens, the consequences of this shift are basically disagreed upon pretty dramatically depending on who you speak to. Some people are saying it means shorter and hotter cycles. Other people say that it means pretty much flattened out cycles with no credit cycle whatsoever because central bankers have their backs. What's your view?
So I think one point that is really important to make is that the market has this perception from the experience over the last 10 years that as soon as the central bank hikes rates by 50 basis points, 100 points, something very moderate, the economy can't take it. I think we have to be very careful there, because what happened over the last 10 to 15 years was that the global economy has gone weak. And it wasn't necessarily that the rate-sensitive sectors got damaged by those rate hikes. There were other things going on that meant that the central bank had to stop. So how far the central bank can go is a totally open question, right? So for example, in the UK now, the market is convinced that the UK economy can only take 100 basis points and then they will have to cut again, right? That's a really big question, and I think for a number of countries around the world, the economy can take a great deal more than 100 basis points.
Jens, you've got industry-leading work with Exante on COVID, and you today, with your wonderful must-read releases on Twitter, you focus on cases. I'm focusing on a really ugly country-by-country flow. The Guardian emphasizes Bulgaria, Latvia in lockdown, and John Farrow's briefing me on the United Kingdom. Are we ready for another global set of lockdowns?
So we look at cases, we look at hospitalizations, we look at fatalities, right? We have to look at the whole picture. And clearly we're in a part of the cycle where just the cases is going to give a different picture about how severe this is relative to previous waves, right? Because they do not translate into hospitalizations in the same degree. But that said, if we look at what's going on right now, you're right that there's some spikes in Eastern Europe. So I'll give you an anecdote. A couple of months ago, Romania sold their vaccines to Denmark, which is the country I'm born in, because they didn't want to use them themselves, right? So there's some countries where the vaccination rates are very low still, and they're going to have issues in the winter. Then there's a different group of countries where we have very, very high vaccination rates, where presumably the hospital pressure will be very, very much lower than previous cycles. So we're going to have pockets of winter waves that are concentrated in the places where they are way behind on the vaccinations. And I think from an economic perspective, you're going to find that this wave that we potentially are facing now is going to be having much, much less of an impact than any of the previous ones.
Jens, we hope so. We hope so. Thank you, sir, as always. Jens Nordvig there of Exante Data.